Welcome to Elevate E-commerce, the podcast where we take your e-commerce game to the next level. I'm your host, Mayana Rose, and together we'll dive into the latest strategies in Amazon and omnichannel advertising, explore the future of e-commerce, and chat with fascinating industry experts on everything from A to Z in the e-commerce world. Tune in for practical tips, transformative success stories, and inspiration to elevate your business to new heights. Hi all, and welcome back to the Elevate E-commerce podcast. Today, I'm pleased to introduce our guest of honor, Mark Simmons. He is one of the lead sales people on our team here at Eva, and also one of the most well-attended guests to trade shows. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. So I'll allow Mark to introduce himself.
Well, thanks, Mayana. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I am Mark Simmons. I'm a key account director here at Eva. And I'm based in Las Vegas, which is an interesting place to be in the world of e-commerce because I get to go to an extreme number of trade shows. I go attend them, exhibit regularly. So I get to talk to brands all day, every day. And I work with new brands that want to work with Eva for account management, launching their brand, expanding to different channels. So I have a lot of involvement with new brands to Eva, and excited to kind of share some of my insights and experiences with you.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing all of them. And yeah, as you mentioned, you are in the mecca of, the event center for all these e-commerce trade shows. You're in the perfect position to be meeting so many brands, and appreciate you lending your wealth of knowledge on this. So my first question for you is, as one of our lead sales and enterprise members at Eva, what is your approach to onboarding new clients? And how do you feel Eva's offerings in particular can help brands grow?
Yeah, it's a great question. Eva has a lot of different service options, right? We can work with a brand that's just getting started with going to market, and they might choose Amazon, they might choose TikTok, or they could be an established brand that's running into some troubles growing. They're not achieving the growth goals that they want, and they want to take that next step. And so the approach that I take with every new brand is that there are a million different problems that you can have on Amazon, on Walmart, on Target, all across the board. And each one is pretty different, right? Depending on the industry, depending on their involvement with the brand, their history, the recognition, the category that they're in, it can be a million different things. So it always starts with really getting to understand the brand, what their goals are, and see if we can fit some solutions that we have to help them achieve those goals. So it's a lot of learning, a lot of listening and hearing and understanding what's your unique case, and where can we help and step in.
That's amazing. I think, listening to needs first and then kind of coming at it from that angle is the perfect way to really get to know how to fix some of the challenges that brands face. And what would be your best advice for brands using different advertising techniques to stand out in a crowded market?
So that's a great question. If we're talking about on Amazon, if Amazon's their primary focus, because honestly, that's where most people shop, as everyone knows, some of the old ways of advertising don't work as well anymore and don't work at scale, right? So as a company scales and grows to a bigger audience, when it comes to their advertising strategy, they really need to start using technology and AI to be able to manage all of the different campaigns, right? But it's more than just that, right? You can use different tools and set a million different campaigns, but where AI it kind of falls short, and every single day it's getting better and better, so it might not fall short for very long, is understanding your unique business case, your profitability, everything that you want to do, and the landscape, right? Who your competition is. So I would say, the first thing that you can do is to implement technologies into your advertising. And then once you get to a point where you're in a growth mode, and then I would definitely recommend taking advantage of some of the more sophisticated tools that Amazon provides, like utilizing DSP and AMC. It can be a nicer way to understand the full customer journey for Amazon. And then I would say, as an outside the box idea for brands that have been around for a long time, especially if it's something that can be kind of an impulse buy, right? If it's not a car or something very expensive that you're looking to use, I would strongly recommend utilizing influencer marketing, because it's a whole different game than the traditional PPC kind of advertising that you see on Amazon and other channels. But it can yield some pretty incredible and fast results for people. So I would say, technology, advanced advertising like DSP, utilizing AMC, and then influencer marketing are three of the key areas we see as huge areas that can make you stand out from your competition if they're not using it.
Absolutely. And I imagine it's kind of tailored to the brand and, listening to their challenges to direct them which to really go for.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for everybody, right? Like, you're not going to sell some huge furniture or TVs on TikTok because you see an influencer utilizing it, right? But an exciting new product that maybe you don't know, the market doesn't know exists or doesn't know how exactly to search for it, right? I think you had a unique brand on a couple weeks ago, Liquorade. That you don't necessarily know how to look for that, or that is a product that you can get. But if you see somebody using it, it's like a no-brainer. So for some brands, utilizing influencer content makes a lot of sense. For others, it might not. But certainly if you're selling on Amazon and advertising, you definitely want to implement technologies to assist, because for things like just allocating the budget through the day, right? If you want to change the bids every single hour based on the data that you have on when the sales happen and when people are searching for your products, it's nearly impossible for a human to manage it. So that's one of the exciting things I see with Eva and with the brands that I've worked with and onboarded and how they have grown. That technology becomes a huge advantage for them.
I can definitely imagine that. And speaking of kind of success stories, do you have any brands in particular that come to mind when you think of a success story that you onboarded and you kind of saw really skyrocket?
I do. With the industry that we work in, we do have a lot of NDAs with our clients, so I won't say specifically, but I'll give an idea. So I saw a brand at a food trade show, and it's an incredibly recognizable brand in the restaurant industry. Didn't even know they had food products, and talked to them, and they weren't selling on Amazon. But as we looked into it, where they weren't selling it, they had huge brand recognition. They had a bunch of resellers selling it, and they weren't great listings. So they decided, you know what, we want to get this channel open for ourselves. And we got started a few months ago. It's going great, as you would expect from such a brand, and really even surpassing our expectations. But for 30 years, they were in retail. And never opened up the Amazon channel. So it was kind of a no-brainer for them. And they're seeing some great results so far. And the potential is massive with them, because they're just such a recognizable brand that this opens up a whole new line of business for them. And that has gone really well so far.
That's amazing. I imagine that's kind of like the gold mine of clients when you have that cult following and you're the first to break them into the Amazon ecosystem.
Yeah, it's pretty rare, right?
Yeah, pretty
A
rare
lot of
because
brands.
most brands are on there if they know about it and know they would have a market. So
Right,
pretty
right.
cool to get to be the person to do that. And so speaking of that, is there something that you kind of look for? I mean, obviously that being the gold standard, but when you are speaking with a brand, is there something that you listen for about that would make you think, oh, jackpot, we can really help this client?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. So, unfortunately on Amazon, as everybody knows, there's a lot of different products that might be kind of a trending product that a million sellers want to jump into because they see on certain tools that, wow, this is now trending and let's get in there. But most of them don't succeed. And if they do succeed, they might not succeed for very long because they're not necessarily passionate about that product. They just see an opportunity. So when I'm talking to brands, one, I'm looking for a really passionate brand owner, brand team that ideally got into the business because they really think that this is a product that people need. And a lot of times you hear the founders' stories, it comes based on they had a personal need or their family did, or I saw something was missing in the products on the market. And they have a strong passion for it. But that doesn't necessarily translate to expertise in e-commerce, unfortunately. And you see the opposite, where there's no passion, but they have the expertise so they can position themselves well. So that's really where I feel great about the work that we do, because these guys have a vision, they have a brand identity, and they just need the assistance to be able to make that successful on various e-commerce channels. So to be able to be involved with those initial conversations, talking about the strategies, the markets that they want to open up, their expertise in their product and our expertise with the different e-commerce channels, it's a perfect match. And that's exactly what I look for with a new brand. Obviously, with some logistical things like a healthy profit margin and realistic expectations, but if they have that passion, that's one of the key things that I think is going to be able to make them stand out in a very crowded space.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, let's talk about advertising. What do you think brands should understand about growing their profit, realistic expectations, and how to approach advertising on Amazon's complex seller center to UGC? I know you touched on that a little bit, but if you can speak to that a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I think one of the key things that's missing from a lot of the brands that I speak with is that they understand that it takes strong advertising in order to grow the brand and be successful. But it's really not, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Advertising can bring eyes onto your product, but if the descriptions aren't appealing, or they're not accurate enough, or the images aren't good, or worse, you run out of stock and you don't have a solid inventory that can keep sustained, it's not really going to have a positive effect. And the other thing is that it's a little bit more of a complexity, but having the right advertising strategy of who you're trying to target, right? If you have a big Amazon presence, and I've talked to a few brands like this recently, where they have used advertising in the past with some big budgets, some small budgets, and they notice that, well, advertising does have a nice effect, but often it's cannibalizing their organic sales because people are already going to be searching for and buying the product, and they're advertising, and then they're spending money when they didn't have to. So really being able to understand the data that their history on Amazon shows, and with the Eva platform, we have a really strong data set to be able to make an advertising strategy to target people in an awareness phase that are new to brand customers, and not just targeting your subscribe and save regulars. That's very tricky. So being able to use a combination of technology with our PPC and brand teams who are amazing experts and have seen it all on Amazon. To combine those two things is really critical, or else you could be spinning your wheels and spending money on advertising without getting the return that you need.
Absolutely. And I think even more so about kind of when you expand to an omni-channel presence, which can be great for growing brands and visibility, but to be able to compare your ad spend in one area and make sure that it's not, cannibalizing another. I think that is a really valuable aspect that Eva brings to the table.
That, choosing the right marketplaces, right? Where to spend your advertising budget, right? It might make sense to spend it all on advertising because that's going to be your biggest profit center. And that's the thing that if you can grow to a certain level, then it allows for opening new channels. But other brands, it might make more sense to spend that advertising money partnering with influencers and trying to get some content that people can see, people using the product, get familiarity with it. It might make more sense there. And then there's also the profitability calculation, right? With Amazon, we love Seller Central, of course, but it doesn't make it the easiest way to understand what your profitability is on a per product basis, right? So you might not have the same margins on one product versus another. And if you can't factor that data set into your advertising strategy, it's not going to get you the best return. So combining the actual data that shows where you want to go, but also understanding the vision and who the target market is and where those guys are shopping, which changes every few days and might change again coming up. But it's a complex calculation. And so having those pretty long conversations in the initial process and then being able to work with our delivery teams who are actually managing those accounts and watching them grow is great for me to see, because I can really see what's working for one is not necessarily going to work for another. And we really have to tailor those strategies.
Useful information for any brand or person who's kind of exploring the e-commerce space and growing their brand. And I can imagine that a lot of that direction that you get from the data from Eva actually informs the direction you would take your brand, which is invaluable to making sure that you're actually growing profitably. So I wanted to just rack your brain. I know we have March coming up, which is sort of the trade show sprint. There's trade shows all year round that I'm sure you could tell me about, but I would love to know, of all the trade shows you attend, which are your favorites, and can you tell me a little bit more about them and the value they bring to both the brands and some of the service providers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I moved out. I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I moved to Las Vegas a couple years ago, and it didn't cross my mind that it was the trade show capital. But now I feel like my office is Mandalay Bay or the convention center half the time, and I get to see so many different industry shows, some really unique ones, some niche ones, others that are more focused on like e-commerce. March is a very exciting time in the trade show space. I think that I exhibited like 21 days in a row last March between 4 or 5 different shows, and very excited to do it again. My favorite show, it's a tough question, but I think from, the way I attend shows is 2 ways. One, sometimes I'm there to meet with our brand customers. We're not exhibiting. I'm walking the show, learning the new products, learning what's new and exciting in the space, and just talking to all kinds of brands. And then otherwise, we'll exhibit at some shows as well. I think my favorite is Fancy Foods Show, which is around this time each year, and it's for obvious reasons, right? There's so much good food and drinks. I'm Italian. My family's Italian. The Italian Pavilion at Fancy Food Show, if that was a restaurant, I would go there like every day, I think. That one I love. A kind of unique one is called ASD in Las Vegas, and there we exhibit, and it's a big show with a long history of people looking to source products, find new product spaces to go into, and it's just such an interesting mix of people that decide to take the journey to sell things in e-commerce, and just hearing all of the different stories, what led people to that. It's super interesting. I love the Amazon shows. I love all the shows, and I feel like a little bit of a business therapist when I go to them sometimes, because one commonality that I see, whatever the industry is, if they're selling on Amazon or other e-commerce marketplaces, no one's like, it's going great, it's smooth, it's really easy, everything's fine all the time, right? Even the biggest brands are constantly having crazy issues come up that it might seem like the smallest issue, like, Amazon might revert your images randomly to like 5-10 years earlier. I heard that happen to one brand, or
no.
it's categorized in the wrong place. But they can have pretty devastating effects. And when you go into selling, you're thinking about advertising, you're thinking about the obvious things, but you're not necessarily thinking about all the small things that can go wrong. And I've heard so many different stories of different things that go wrong and other things that go really right, which is very, very cool to see. And it's such a unique opportunity to be able to talk to so many brands so often and get to see these different shows. Oh, and I also saw Ludacris at a show last year. I think that was a highlight too.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them have some pretty good entertainment.
Yeah. Unbox had some fun. Yeah, I guess to that point, you speak to so many brands, and you're saying that there are, of course, some commonalities between the challenges that they face. And what would you say kind of in recent trends based on the landscape that we're in right now? I know there's been stuff with reimbursements, and what are you finding a lot of brands are kind of overlapping with what they bring up in your conversations?
Yeah, I mean, one of the recurring themes that seems to be eternal, especially with Amazon, is that brands have to work with smaller and smaller margins as fees increase. That seems to be a kind of recurring theme with all kinds of brands. Others have very unique challenges. Like we work with a brand who is one of the bigger sellers of some home supply cleaning equipment, and their growth story took place because they blew up on TikTok and went viral. And that changes, just that changes their entire Amazon strategy. Their team has to do about 100 times more things and deal with a lot more things that can go wrong with big consequences. So to be able to see how a business can then utilize partners when they get to that next level, it's really exciting to see. But yeah, the challenges are all over the place. A lot of people, every seller that's listening to this knows it probably has way more horror stories than I do. But having to deal with Amazon if something goes wrong, and if it's not like you're a customer and you can just call up customer service and get somebody on the phone and you get a refund. It's a lot more of a difficult process. You have to deal with the AI. They might measure your products wrong, which causes huge problems on your profitability. To just get yourself categorized in the right place, you might have to be on the phone with like 10 different people and email 20 different times just to get it resolved. These are some of the challenges that sellers have that I didn't expect when I came into the e-commerce space. As a buyer on Amazon, I thought, wow, you can just call them up and they'll fix your issue. Well, it's a lot different for sellers, and having to navigate that on your own is not something I would envy for anybody.
No, and especially I think what I was hearing a little bit from that story is that there is this potential to kind of have almost an overnight success story. Obviously, there's a lot of preamble to that of building the brand and the production, but when something kind of just goes viral and then not being able to accommodate that if you're not well prepared. Had another interesting conversation with Oz Merchant just about the CEO mindset and how a lot of people aren't prepared to sort of shift from that entrepreneur into the CEO and really make those decisions. So it's definitely helpful to have, a co-pilot like Eva on your side, because then you have a team of people who are very informed about the industry. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm really looking forward to our upcoming trade shows in March. I know that's kind of the sprint of the season. And I also just wanted to mention that I know you have some webinars upcoming, and I know you're going to be hosting one on February 21st about Walmart and Target success strategies for multi-channel growth, as well as in March, custom audience targeting and AMC, the key to multi-channel success, and sustainable profitability, balancing growth and margin on Amazon, and that's May 16th. So I don't know if you want to speak to your excitement about any of those topics, but I'm excited to host them and learn a lot myself.
Yeah, I'm super excited. In my business, I get to talk about a lot of different channels, right? But a lot of times it focuses on Amazon. So, but Walmart and Target are extremely good opportunities for sellers, especially as a next step. And especially if a brand wants to get into that retail space, if they maybe start as an e-commerce business, but each has its own peculiarities. It each has its own strengths and weaknesses. And I'm really excited to dive into those coming up on February 22nd. So please join if you can for that one. And then as far as our exciting trade show schedule goes, if you happen to be at ASD in March, Shop Talk, Prosper, or Expo West in Anaheim, come check us out. We'll be there exhibiting. Happy to have a conversation and learn about your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Approach any of us. You can drop a comment in the comment section here, and explore a conversation further about your brand and how Eva might be able to help you. Well, I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming webinar. I hope you guys can join. And if not, and you are attending any of the events, come find us. And thank you so much for joining today, Mark. That was a really enlightening conversation. And I hope that you all got as much out of it as I did.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Of course, anytime.